Hi, I'm Debbie Harding, and this is Pastel Tapas, and welcome to this demo. This is Washington Lavender in Sequim, Washington. And part of the reason I came was not only to capture the wonderful lavender that's growing right now, but these folks do an awesome job of incorporating rows of wildflowers in with it. And every time I come, that's one of the things that just captures my attention. And so I'm going to try to get that in this demo. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy this demo, and let's get going and have some fun. Halfway through this composition, after I went home for a night and had a chance to look it over, I came back the next day to make some changes. And I'm going to show you that at the end with some narration, and we'll make a little comparison between day 1 and day 2. So do hang on to watch that. I think you'll find it very interesting. Before I painted the demo that you're going to be seeing today, I actually spent an afternoon sitting amongst the wildflowers at Washington Lavender Farm. And I painted in plein air and got a beautiful composition with the buildings in the background. What a fabulous day, enjoying the beauty of the surroundings, the wonderful crisp ocean breezes, and visiting with people. I think I'm going to pull the row of lavender up a little closer. It's behind a couple more rows of wildflowers there. Is it any wonder that I want to paint these flowers? Just look at the palette of color. And I brought a chair so I can sit fairly low so I can get those wildflowers coming up in the foreground, and then try to get some of that lavender peeking over behind. So throughout this video, I'm going to weave in some shots from that day that I spent out amongst the wildflowers, and also show you the demo that I did back at my studio. That's where I'm sitting with Biscuit. Let me give you a shot over the top of my easel so you can see what I'm looking at. But the reality is, once I sat down in my chair, this is more of what I was seeing, with the flowers in the foreground looming large. In this video, I'm also mixing in a little bit of the actual real-time demo. So do hang out to the end to hear my narration and teaching, and get a little flavor of what my Patreon members get to experience every month. So when I got home from my plein air day, I wanted to paint the scene again, and I used one of the photos I had taken while I was there. And it was a scene that was directly behind me on that day that I sat amongst the flowers. couldn't have asked for a more beautiful day. It's very cool today. Actually, I thought it was going to be too cold, and then I looked out my window and noticed that the clouds were pretty much just hanging around the mountains, as you can see here. You can see that I also have some other small friends here, some beehives that are not too far away from me. So now I invite you to join me in my studio as I put the finishing touches on this piece and do a little bit of narration for you. If you're enjoying this video, please do consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and share this video. I sure would appreciate that. Thank you. So one of the last things I want to do on this is to try to soften this a bit. I thought I was done. I think that it's just pretty, the colors are just a little bit too uniform in their intensity throughout this, and so I wanted to give it a little more depth, especially on some of these flowers in the distance here. And then I think that I also, I kind of stopped it before I finished. I want to add some of the pinks in. I didn't do that. And maybe work on other flowers a little bit more. So this certainly was not quite ready to be done. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm even going to take my signature off. I want to try to improve it just slightly. So I am going to take this and soften some of these flowers that are back here. just by lightly tapping it with this very soft brush. Blend some of that in a little bit more. I'm going to try not to get the background behind them too much. They're too, like I said, too uniform, too bold. I want to make them a little less, what's the word that I'm looking for? Hard-edged. I think they have, the edges are just way too hard. Even here on some of that, the background of that. So see, already that's, I think, helping with some of these background flowers here that are not in such close focus as some of those others are. I may want to just work the edges here at the top of the lavender too. I think what I need to do is pull some of that grass in between some of these little spikes that are coming up here, and see if I can make it look a little less full. At the top of it is so full, and yet that's really not the look that you get when you're looking at the lavender, because you see the spikes. I'm going to start with this kind of darker green here and do some negative painting in here. Pull in some green in between some of these. I can always go back on. So this is kind of the process that I often go through, is when I take home the photo and take a look at it and see what it really is that I am seeing, because sometimes you can just be way too close to it when you're painting and you don't see what other people might be seeing. I'm going to take some of this darker green down in the bottom here. Put some of that in. Just putting some of the shadow in between these spikes back in too. And there's shadow in this grassy area that I think I lost. It was looking pretty flat. And I'll put some of that back in. Some of the lines that you're actually seeing are darker. I think that I noticed that I made that one slat here just a little too bright white as compared to all the others. So remember I said I wanted to get some of the pink back in, so I'm going to take this pink and put it back into some of these little flowers here, which are, maybe put some back here even in a few places. There aren't as many of those flowers. It just seemed like the color of this was far too primary. The colors were so primary, and wanted to get, it did have a little bit of orange, but not too much. This has a little bit of a brighter green. And there's a brighter green here too. Gets a little bit less as you go away from it. I'm really keeping this this area here very loose. I don't want to have that standing out at all. Okay, I like this a lot better now, but it looks too flat still, It's actually how I'm seeing it in the picture, but I don't like how it's reading on this, so I'm going to try to put some lighter the tops of some of these are lighter, and maybe they're in front here a little bit. You know, when you see a lavender bush, you don't see, you do see some of it in front. And they kind of go off to the side like that. That probably is good for that. One of the things that I want to do is find a blue that's a very kind of a periwinkle blue to put on the tips of some of these flowers. Let's see if this is it. Kind of seems like it is, but I can put it across the top of some of these as the petals of this flower are catching the sun, and give it a little bit more form. It's kind of, some of these are so just blobs. I don't want that to be in too much focus. Remember, I purposely went through that and changed it so that it would be out of focus a little bit more. And I did the same thing here because I wanted the edges of these to be out of focus a little more. And I will come back over the top to add a few marks that are going to be much more focused. Oh, I thought this was blue. It's got a little purple in it. I think that'll be okay. Maybe taking this, and I think what I'm seeing here in the photo is that underneath these flowers, it gets quite dark, and I'm not doing that very well. So I need to find just the right blue to darken it underneath these flowers. So let's see what I can find. I don't know if this is it or not. They kind of comes to a little bit of a point underneath. I think that's helping. Giving a little shadow underneath. But it's giving them a place in space where they are, there's a 3D effect to it more. And I also think that some of these have a little purple in them. They're interesting flowers. I have to look up what they are. These blue flowers that are in the wildflower mix that they use. Okay, now I'm going to go back with, I tried to add some of this white in here, and not getting it too intense. I tried to do it by starting off with blue, and now I will go back and put some white highlights on it. I'm going to take this and put a little bit of white on some of these. like to kind of overlap, keep overlapping one and then adding another layer and overlapping again, because it makes it look more realistic, I think. And certainly the way that these plants are tangled in here is not so even. It's very random. There's a randomness to it. That little bit of pink here is nice, and maybe I can just add some more here and there. I don't actually have this particular flower in this layer right here. I'm adding it in, and so I just have to kind of imagine how the light is going to hit it when it's farther away like that. And maybe I'm giving it a little bit more definition here. So now what I'm going to do at the very bottom is take a much bluer green and add some grasses that are coming out from the shadows down here, kind of up through this dark that I left down there, so that it seems like they're coming out of the shadow more. I like to vary the color of purple that's in the lavender bush, even though I'm not necessarily seeing that, because it just makes for so much more interest, I think. There are stems coming down, but you don't have to draw them all so that they look like you can track each one to the plant it's going to. I just like to put little tick marks of brighter color in here and there. Kind of gives it a neat look, I think. And then we had that very bright, whoops, I picked the wrong one up, very bright green in a few places here, just to pull your eye in. I don't know if we can put a little back here so your eye has somewhere to go. I think it's definitely looking better. I like the softer edges on it. I don't think that I'm going to do much more to these. I like that they are subdued a little bit more now. Putting a little bit of this darker green in here where the shadow's coming up in front of the grass, and pulling it down a little bit into that deep shadow. So this is looking better. Now I want to go up here and just break up some of these lines as they're coming down in. You know, when you're doing a tree, you can sometimes have a branch that leaves the edge of the tree and you don't really see it connected. And the reason why is that whatever is connecting it is so small you can't see it anyway from this far away. I didn't like how this was dipping down right there. Kind of made this little weird spot right here. Fix it a little bit too. So you can go back and add more little sky holes just to give it a little less heavy look. I might try to put a couple highlights on these on the poppies that are here. And I've got this brighter yellow here. It's got a lot more, I mean brighter orange, it's got a lot of yellow in it. Those poppies, this is a very hard pastel. I just don't have this color in a softer pastel, but I think that helps. The poppies do have quite a bit of yellow. It's a sunny yellow. It's got a lot of orange in it. Wish that I had a softer pastel of that color. Okay, I think it's better. I didn't do a whole lot to it, but you see how these ones in the front have a little more of a focus on the edges, and then as they go back, the back petals are not as intense, and the same thing is happening here too. I really blended those in and changed the look of them quite a bit. In addition to softening the edges on these flowers, I also really worked on the lavender and brought some of the spikes in the foreground to give it more of a form, and so it didn't look so flat. And I added lots more flowers, highlights, shadows, added grasses, and just really played up the whole idea of this tangle of flowers out in the field. And finally, by adding that glow off in the distance with the bright green, it really draws your eye in. So thank you for joining me on this kind of a hybrid between a plein air day and a studio day. I had such a great time when I was painting in plein air that I had to try it again. And so you got to see a little bit of both. So I sure appreciate you joining me. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I'm looking forward to next time because there's always more to come. Thank you. Bye-bye.